Is a Nikita Zadorov trade imminent as the Flames are still searching for their first win on their Eastern road trip? Hey everyone, welcome into Burning Questions, your weekly look at the Calgary Flames. Rob Wong joined alongside by Postmedia Calgary Flames writers Wes Gilbertson and Danny Austin. And guys, what a wild weekend for the Flames. We'll get to what happened on the ice in a moment, but got to start with Nikita Zadorov, who it has been reported has requested a trade out of Calgary. By all accounts, it seems like Craig Conroy and company are definitely going to take their time with this, but Wes, is there potentially some urgency to get this done maybe sooner rather than later, in your opinion?
Well, I think, in the case of the old, there's two sides to every story. The answer is probably from Nikita Zadorov's side. I think there is some urgency. What we saw on Friday night when his agent took to social media and said, sort of something along the lines of, hey, wouldn't this guy look good in a Maple Leafs jersey? Maybe get your tickets to come watch him in Toronto. What Dan Milstein, the agent, is doing in that scenario is trying to make this an issue, trying to force this issue, I suppose, and make it happen sooner than later. And I would say the other side of the story is the Flames side, which is that they won't rush this. They will take their time and make sure they get the best return. Even thinking back a few years ago to when Sam Bennett requested a trade out of Calgary, it was a different front office then, but Craig Conroy was a part of it, and they didn't rush to make that happen. They're going to certainly hear offers on Nikita Zadorov. I believe they are willing to move him. That certainly jives with what we've heard. But could it be tomorrow? Maybe. Could it be a whole lot closer to the NHL trade deadline? Quite honestly, for me, that seems more likely at this point.
Yeah, I mean, we know what Zadorov's agent was trying to do here. All that Zadorov had to say was, hey guys, I'm not going to re-sign in the offseason. And the Flames were going to be forced to trade him at some point anyways. They don't want him to walk for free. So all of this really does is it's an effort, as far as I can tell, to accelerate the timeline from the player's perspective. And the Flames are under no obligation to do anything that's going to put their team in a worse spot moving forward. If there are teams with the cap space and the assets to come get Zadorov, come get him. Sure, why not? They were going to have to trade him anyways. Now, I mean, I do understand from Zadorov's perspective, if he wants to be paid like a top four guy as a free agent next year, he probably wants to be playing top 4 minutes, and he hasn't really been getting those. He's been the fifth best defenseman. So what you're going to get in return, I have no idea. I'm not sure that this could possibly have gone over well, with the caveat that I don't actually know how it went over in the Flames dressing room. I seriously doubt. Zadorov's been relatively outspoken about the team this year, and for him to then come out and say, hey, get me out of here. I can't imagine many people love that. But, if you're the Flames, okay, you're trading him before the deadline, but, you're building for the future, and make sure that you get the right pieces back.
Well, on the ice, it was a tough weekend as well. The Flames were able to salvage a point in a shootout loss to the Maple Leafs on Friday, Danny, but a tough regulation loss in Ottawa on Saturday. What do you think went wrong for the Flames this weekend?
I mean, it's funny. If the Flames were in a better position in the standings, I think that we could look at Saturday's loss to the Senators and say it's no big deal. To be perfectly honest with you, like, second night of a back-to-back, you're a couple time zones away from home, not the end of the world. But the Flames aren't in a better place in this standings. They're exactly where they are. And look, I don't think they had their legs under them. I think they played that game on Friday night, if people didn't watch it, you missed out, because it was a whole lot of fun. It was a shootout loss for the Flames in the end, but I was on the edge of my seat the entire game, the way the Flames stormed back. We certainly saw what Toronto's high-end talent can do, as well as sort of the holes in that lineup and how they could hurt them, and we saw the Flames take advantage. But that was a great game, really emotional, and then just, like, they lay an egg. It didn't look good. I'm not going to overanalyze that game, but the reality is, when you started the game or the season with couple games in, you had a 6-game losing streak. You can't afford to have off nights if you're trying to climb your way back in.
The one thing I'd add is, and it's not just this weekend in Toronto and Ottawa, but it's maybe highlighted it for me, is that the Calgary Flames are finally scoring a few goals, but they're scoring them with the unlikely suspects. They're getting goals from forward call-ups, Connor Zary and Martin Pospisil. They're getting goals from third line left winger Blake Coleman. They got a goal from fourth liner AJ Greer. They got a goal from the blue line in Nikita Zadorov shortly before the trade request news drops. But who's not on that list? Well, Jonathan Huberdeau is not on that list. Elias Lindholm's not on that list. Nazem Kadri, who had a 5-game point streak to his credit, and in Ottawa is not on that list. The Flames are going to need their marquee guys, and I'd add Michael Backlund, their captain, to that as well. Andrew Mangiapane. They need their marquee guys to get some goals. And this is a team that has shown they're not terribly proficient right now at keeping opponents to below 3 or 4 goals a night, and so they're going to have to get some scoring. And if their top guns are going to be silent, they're really going to run into issues.
Well, let's talk about maybe the top gun, and that, of course, is Jonathan Huberdeau. The struggles still continuing at this point. Could head coach Ryan Huska West be trying to get him going by moving him around the lineup with some different lineups, partners this potential week, starting tomorrow in Montreal?
Yeah, heading into the game against the Canadiens at practice today in Montreal, it sounds like Jonathan Huberdeau skated on the left wing with Michael Backlund and Blake Coleman. It's an interesting spot because that's your shutdown line, and so now you have your top offensive player on a line that typically gets the toughest defensive matchups. That might seem like a curious fit, and yet why it makes sense is that Michael Backlund has a history of bringing out the best of his line mates. There's a reason when Martin Pospisil came up from the minors, they put him right with Backlund and Coleman. They're easy guys to play with. You hear that they're sort of predictable guys to play with, and that's a compliment. And so this is the latest attempt. This is the latest try to get Jonathan Huberdeau going. I will point out, on our Calgary Flames at postmedia.com email address, we did have one thing they haven't tried. Someone suggested maybe move Jonathan Huberdeau to defense. I don't think they're quite there yet or even considering it. I don't think you'll ever see him on defense, but hey, they've tried just about everything else. Let's see how he looks with Backlund and Coleman, and then defense next.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm being honest, the only thing I was wondering was whether we might see him with a sort of Connor Zary or a Pospisil. If there's some sort of way that you can combine those, those young guys with the veteran and Huberdeau, because something has to. I mean, again, it's the frustrating thing. Something has to work eventually, or this just ends up looking really, really bad. But I'm writing about it today. Putting players with Michael Backlund and Blake Coleman tends to make them look better. For all the reasons Wes was saying, there's just stability there, and at this point, maybe that's what Huberdeau needs. He talked today in Montreal a little bit about the confidence still not quite being there. He believes that the skill set's still there. The big question is, it's now been over 90 games. How do you get that confidence back? I mean, it's very easy to say I need to get it back. It's much harder to actually do. So I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say you're throwing darts at the wall or anything like that, but I gotta say Ryan Huska is clearly not afraid, as we talked about last week, to try different things and hopefully something works.
Hopefully it's not a season-long topic we're going to be touching on here, but if you do have some suggestions for how to fix Jonathan Huberdeau, like Wes said, you can email us at calgaryflames@postmedia.com, and we'll try to answer them here. For Wes Gilbertson and Danny Austin, I'm Rob Wong. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time on another Burning Questions.